Good viewer, you are watching Xirtus. This is because Xirtus makes you feel good, makes you feel fulfilled. You are enjoying this. You will continue to watch Xirtus for a long time to come. You want to subscribe to Xirtus, and you will. You will like and subscribe and share. You will tell your friends. Tell your friends about Xirtus. Your friends will come to like Xirtus, much as you are liking this right now, as we speak. Thank you for subscribing to Xirtus. See, that was easy.
This next story has been suppressed by mainstream media. Let's go to Andreas for more.
Everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians.
Hello. Welcome to the Xirtus. Tune in for another exciting episode of wonder, imagination, and discovery.
Recent Tartarians.
Ментально образует всеобщие закономерности, определяющие законы классической физики для нашего
Sometimes I
мира.
look at the moon and just think, this skin's beautiful.
Baby, when I met you, there was peace unknown.
Что касается энергии наномер, то она превышает ядерную в немыслимое число раз. 10 в 74 степени.
That's it. That's it. That's it. With your arms now. That's it. That's it.
Thank you for watching Xirtus. Keep listening. Remember, if you enjoyed the video, please follow and subscribe and share and support. It really helps. Coming up next, Xirtus.
By the way, that's gone. If you didn't record that, that's gone forever. It's gone.
Hey everybody, welcome to Andreas Xirtus show, the electing choice of pleasure and enchantment with Karen, Lorre, and David, my co-host here. I was trying to do an LA thing and I can't do it. Let's just go back. The views and expressions brought to you by our viewers do not necessarily represent the views and opinions of the state media system. Okay, back to the show. And Karen, who is joining us, let me show you her X.com, or some people call it Twitter, or she likes to call it her own personal love dojo. This is her, and then this is also her website. This is where she writes books about the chronic pleasure, effortless enchantment, and chronic pleasure in relationships, which is really important because, you know, don't do it by yourself, right? How you doing? Good to have you.
Oh, wonderful. How are you guys?
Pretty excited to do a show this evening with you and to dig deeper into synchromysticism. David, I didn't mean to speak for you.
Sure, please speak for me. You always do such a good job speaking for me that I won't complain. You know, I don't say
for now.
Yeah,
I'm just waiting until you run for office so I can really start to speak for you. But yeah, maybe Karen, you'd like to introduce a little bit about yourself and your background, your work.
Sure. I have studied like psychic stuff when I was a kid. I went to college for mind-body science. And the reason I was so interested in it was because every time I got sick when I was a kid, my mother would ask me, you know, did something happen at school? I'd say, yeah, Teresa was really mean to me. And then she'd say, oh, tell me about it. And then I'd tell her about it. And then I'd feel better. And then she'd make me go to school. So showed me the relationship just by asking questions between my mind and my physiology. So I studied that in college and I loved it. And then I had this moment where I was driving and I had this thought. I was thinking, because I had taken one acting class and I thought it was the best thing in the world. It was the most wonderful feeling I'd ever had. Like golden light felt like it was pouring through me while I was in this class. And I was thinking about it, and I was still in college and I was studying this mind-body science, which I loved. And so I didn't know what to do. And I heard this voice that said, do you want to live a life where someone tells you what to do, or do you want a life of adventure? And I thought, adventure. And then I got a clarity that that would be acting. So I made this decision that night in the car that I wanted to be an actress. And the next day I was out to lunch with a friend and he said, I said to him, I think I'm going to be an actor. And he said, oh, he said, you got to get an agent. I said, what is an agent? I knew nothing, right? What is an agent? And he said, an agent gets you acting job. I said, oh, cool. I go, how do you get an agent? And he says, you have to have a manager. And I said, what is a manager? And he said, they get you an agent. And I said, oh, wow. And literally I walked out of that restaurant. He was still inside doing something. And I walked out and I was waiting for him. And this woman walks up to me and she says, are you an actress? And I thought, oh, I just decided last night, but I am, you know.
Fake it till you make it. Yeah, no, you made it very quickly.
Yeah.
That should be it. That should be its own X-Files episode. Sorry, keep going.
Right, exactly. She goes, here's my card. I'm a manager. Call me. I want to work with you. And I called her. And as he was walking out, she said, remember to call me tomorrow. And he said, who is that? And I said, she's a manager. Her name's Lorre. And he said, oh my God, you know. And so it just happened. And she became my manager and she got me an agent. And, you know, I just started acting. And it was just really great for me because there's something about acting that I really loved. And then through acting, I got to travel to like 30 different countries, 35, something like that. So I got to be in the culture of different countries that I really like, you know, like it's really interesting to be in a culture versus going there as a tourist, because when you're working, you're part of the city, you're part of the culture, and you're usually there because you're working with local film crew and local people. And so that was really fun. And I just got this love of the travel with acting. And then I loved being different people. You know, I had read a lot when I was a little kid, a lot. Like I was incessantly reading when I was a kid. And that was my first escape. So when I would read a script, I could just feel like I became this other person. But the other thing that was so interesting, sorry, this is so long, but I became aware as I was acting how my physiology changed with each character I played. My relationships changed with each character I played. And that's what got me into, eventually got me into writing these books. I ended up getting married and then getting divorced, and the divorce was devastating. And I had a spiritual awakening that healed my body of everything. It was a gradual healing of a couple years, but it was incredible. And that's when I started writing these books.
That's awesome. I mean, so looking at some of the work that our audience would be familiar with, it kind of made the X-Files joke, but there's a bunch of cool things that you've been a part of. I was thinking of, you did like a soap opera show first, right? Like One Life to Live or something like that. I'm a kind of a weird fan of soap opera because, I mean, for the reason I think an actor would want to do it, because it's like you get immediately to digest this new reality and you put yourself into it. I wonder, like, do you feel like that was a much more influential part of how you do, like when you said you become characters and it changes how your emotions are? Do you think it was like a beneficial experience like that?
Oh, for sure. Like, for example, on One Life to Live, I was playing Tina. My character got pregnant. So I wore a pillow and a leotard, you know, for several months.
Wow.
And I was just, you know, playing pregnant. Right. And people, when they were out, they were say, oh my God, you're having a baby. And I'd say, no, I'm an actor. And then they would get mad at me. So then
it's like Andy Kaufman level genius. Keep going.
And I was like, they would say later once I realized that they were all getting mad at me because I was an actress looking like I was pregnant. Then they would say, oh, you're having a baby. And I would say, thank you. You know, I didn't want to, but I didn't want to like wreck it for them. Anyway, so
that's such a huge thing right now. So there's a girl right now, Christina Consnar, who's done a YouTube video where she pretended to be pregnant. And then she made another video saying, I was just making a video. You guys thought that was real? Do you guys understand that this is all fake all the time? And people were so upset at her. And it's like, wow, a month ago, you guys were all in love with your fantasy that she's created. So you're not upset at her lying to you. You're upset at her telling the truth to you. That is a hard responsibility for an actor.
Yes, but the mind-body thing was what was fascinating, because after about 4 or 5 months, the wardrobe girl came in with the dress that I wear and the bra that goes with it, and she put the bra on me, and I overflowed it. My breasts were ready for a baby, and she said, "Oh my God, your breasts went from a C to a D," and I was like, "Oh my God!"
The Stanislavski breast increase. This is way better than any surgery. They should teach that.
Oh my God, it's so much better. Yeah, I don't believe in doing surgery. You can do it all with your mind. But so she went to get the the right bra. And I went, oh my God, my mind is affecting my body. This is what I studied in college. This is what's happening. So yeah, I saw lots of that throughout acting and then when I had the baby on the show, my breast went back to a C.
Wow. That's amazing. David's all like musing. Do you have thoughts before I continue?
I was processing the idea of when you embody a role to the degree that you're like, this is you for now, as long as it takes for this to come through. And so I was thinking of Nietzsche's The Birth of Tragedy, which was his first book that he wrote in his early 20s. I don't know if you're familiar, but he talks a lot about when in Greek tragedy, when they would act out these parts, that they would literally be like looking to like call down the archetypes of these like of these gods and goddesses to like, invoke them, not just evoke them, but like have them come up through them. And there's a Greek saying, I don't speak Greek, so I don't remember how to say it in Greek, but it's like Hermes has entered. And so sometimes it's like, it'd be like Hermes has entered. So it'd be like if somebody was really like on a roll, like they're communicating and like this really like, like it's not
Hermes has entered the chat. Yeah.
It's like they've brought it down into them and it's coming through. And like, and you see like through all the, there wasn't that many of the Greek tragedies. Like they just keep repeating like the same plays and people will be so familiar. And then there's also the role of the satyr chorus, which for me, like really like speaks to synchronicity, especially the work I do with like album film pairing stuff. So it's like, the idea is that people would be so familiar with these plays and they would like have the audience would have every line basically memorized. And the satyr chorus would be these men dressed as satyrs in between the audience and the stage in the theater, Dionysian theater. And they would like do music. So like while the play is happening, and even to the point where it's like drowning out the words, which doesn't matter because people are so familiar with it, and they would speak to kind of like the subtext and like the inner thoughts of the characters, and the music would be subject to change while the play stays consistent. And so like, I don't know, I think that there's more to acting maybe than some people just assume, like because maybe it's not true for all actors these days, but I think that there's something to be said for the integrity of like the principle behind what it historically what it means to act,
Yes, I love that. And it is an invocation in that sense, because you really, that's why I noticed I don't do the kind of acting where you play the character the whole time, but I also didn't know how to let go of the character when I was, in my real life. So I would have my life, I would attract different things based on what character I was being. What character I was playing. And so that really informed me later when I was learning how to heal. I thought I have to act as a healthy person, in order to get that healing. So I called in that health and I embodied it like an actress does, where I'm going to stand a certain way. I'm going to look at people. I'm going to smile. I'm going to just be this character. And even though I hardly left my house, because I had undiagnosed narcolepsy, so I was like falling asleep on films, which is not a good thing, and on camera at an audition. Do
you think
the lady's reading with me, and then she looks up and she goes, "Did you fall asleep?" And I'm like, "Yes."
Do you think there's something to that, like hypnosis, right? Or no, you just tired?
No, it's narcolepsy where you sleep a lot during the day and you don't sleep well at night.
Mm-hmm.
I had it either way. I'll tell you how I got it. I was 3. And my neighborhood was all older and we were all riding bikes around the block, but they had bikes and I had a big wheel. So I'm trying to keep up, pedaling really fast, and I'm trying to keep up. And there was a huge hill coming up, where the root of a tree went under a sidewalk. It was huge at the time. And the hill was so huge that I got nervous and my big wheel hit the other part of the sidewalk and I went headlong into a sycamore tree and I was out for 28 hours or something like that. And like 8 years ago or something like that, I was just meditating and all of a sudden I was there in my house and I saw my little body on the couch and my Dr. Bouch was there. My mom and dad was there. And the doctor was saying to my mom and dad, you have to wake her up every hour or she could die. And from above, I could see my little body. That's what narcolepsy is. You wake up all the time. And I could see my little body say, I got to wake up every hour or I could die.
Yeah.
I believe that. And I've had narcolepsy. I had narcolepsy until I saw that vision. And then I healed that vision. And now I don't have it anymore. I don't need any medicine. I don't do anything.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing how much ingrained memories can control everything we do afterwards. Right. I wonder about, and also in terms of, because like the way David was talking about, like not all actors are doing this anymore, but, you know, looking at the history of acting, do you see it as more than just like vaudeville clowning, right? Like, is this kind of a psychic art already, you know, before you realize it?
Yes. I mean, I didn't think of it in that way, except that that first time that I acted before I had made the decision to be an actor, it felt divine. It was, like I said, it was this golden light going through me. So I didn't understand it intellectually, but it was something that was informing me. And when you're saying it like this, it makes so much more sense. And that thing about invocation, it's an invitation of inviting that energy, whether it's that golden light or your spirit or the character or whatever you want to call it, to inspire you. And there's times I've been acting and I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't doing it, you know, and that is such a freedom. Like there's an inner director in me that's directing me that I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just following that direction and it's just pouring through me. So I would say it is definitely, it's a spiritual experience, but I do think anything can be a spiritual experience.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
David, what do you think?
Oh, I was having a lot of different thoughts. I was thinking about the idea in psychoanalysis where they say that, you know, the younger that you are, the more receptive you are, and which also means the more vulnerable you are. So the events that happen to you when you're young, they'll stick with you in ways that if it was to happen to you when you were older, you're more like localized in space and time. Like there's like an orientation thing that continues through our development. And so I was just thinking, well, you know, that would make sense that like if that same type of trauma were to happen to you at a different age, it might not stay with you or impact you in the same way. And yet, you know, what you do with it, there's like the alchemy of it is that, you know, those things can become helpful to you in ways that had they have never have happened, you wouldn't have the kind of openings that you have and the realizations that you have and all of this. So, you know, in that sense, nothing's really for naught, like it all kind of has its place. So that sounds like a good example of that. Like, you know, like I was born deaf. So I was deaf until I was like 2.5 thereabouts. And they did a surgery where they widened my ear canals were sealed. And, you know, I had a really strong reaction during the COVID hysteria when I saw that what was like what I consider with children being masked. And then they're talking about like, I talked to like speech therapists and they're like, no, it's okay. They got plastic masks. And I was just like, what the hell? So like I had this extreme speech impediment until I was like in junior high. And I had like a speech therapist that was really impactful in my life and stuff. But like, I value that. Like I value like, cause I think I relate to things differently than I'm sure I otherwise would. And I'm actually like, it's weird to say, but I'm actually kind of like grateful for that. Like it's an aspect of my character. So I don't know how relatable that is, but I think that there's just something to be said for in your early developmental years when you have something that happens to you, or there's some, you know, something unusual about your experience that it can actually become something else for you, you know?
Exactly. Wow. That's really cool. I used to do American Sign Language. I used to be an interpreter for the hearing impaired. So that's amazing that you were able to heal that. And I will say about when we are in utero, because kids can hear what's going on in utero, all the way until around 6 or 7 years old, we're in what's called a hypnagogic trance. It's the kind of hypnotherapy that you get when you go very deep. You're in theta waves and delta waves. So kids' natural state, even when they're playing, is like theta and delta. So they're taking in everything. They're learning everything. And if you have somebody who's supportive, you're learning good things. But if you have somebody who's saying, oh, you skinned your knee, here, take a cookie. Now you're connecting soothing or pain relief with sugar, right?
Right.
And so there's all these things that can happen that we get trained with. You know, there's so many things. Like one, you know, I coach people, and one of the several people I've coached have trauma where they were little watching mom and dad fight, and they were too little to stop it. So they got this belief that they had no power and that there was no choice. And then when you switch it around and they realize they do have power and they do have choice, and you heal that experience, all of a sudden they have this font of energy and they get to become, more of who they are. And other things, like one of my clients had a problem where she was raped when she was 5, and she told her mom and dad. It was by her cousin. And when she told her mom and dad, or her mom, who was with her sisters, they all laughed at her. So she had this terrible shame. And one day she had a problem with her car. It's so weird. So she had a problem with her car. She bought a used car, and then it rained, and there was something that happened where her car flooded and they couldn't get the water out of the car. So she'd had a month where she'd been trying to get it done, and the insurance had given her a car, and she went to the car place where she bought it. They said, it's too late, you can't get it back. The insurance company gave her another car for a month because she was a masseuse, so she had to travel. And then the other place where she had gone to get something fixed, and the rain came after that, they were like, we didn't do it, we don't know what happened. So she's talking about this one night about the car, and I remember about her being a kid. Nobody helped her when she was a kid. Nobody could help her with her car.
Wow.
We healed that. The next morning, the insurance called and said, we'll give you another 30 days with the car. The car company where she bought it said, look, if you can't get this fixed, we will exchange it for you. And it was like 3 months past now at this point, of 4. And then the place that she had gotten the work done before it had gotten bad, one of the guys called up and he said, look, I know I have been trying to help you and I haven't known how. I still don't know how I can help you, but I'm going to make you my mission. I'm going to make sure I help you. And she was like, she called me crying. She was like, I cannot believe that the reason I wasn't getting helped was because of something that happened in my childhood where I didn't believe I could get helped.
Do you think that it affects the world as much as it affects her perspective of the world, that all of a sudden the world starts helping her, or that she was just open to it? Or how much of it's affecting beyond just your perspective of reality and how to receive reality?
I believe that we are all drops of love in the ocean of love, and that there's that we're all connected, that everybody's connected to everybody else. Because, I don't know if you've seen this, but when a company, let's say there's a company who's doing a deal overseas, and one part of the overseas deal, like, just says, forget it, I'm not doing it. The other part, without them telling anything, they didn't say it to the other people, but the other group will go, oh, we should give them this, because we're so connected. So I've had it. Literally, I changed my mind on something. I changed my frequency, just like I met that agent. If what you believe about yourself and what your emotional state is really impacts all the things that can come to you. People get synchronicities in good ways and bad ways. I get synchronicities in good ways. So, like, I'm thinking of things I love. I sailed to Hawaii when I was 18. I love the ocean. I have this thing about the ocean. I scuba dive, I've paddleboard, I've kayaked, I just love the ocean and sailed. And with one other person who is a particle physicist studying neutrinos, which I always thought sounded like a breakfast cereal. Anyway, but so now I've gotten involved with a company that has 300 scientists, and they're making kelp. They're not making kelp, but they're growing kelp that can withstand the higher temperatures and the greater acidity in the water and the more pollution in the water. And California's lost 94% or 96% of its kelp. And so this is like really interesting. And so it's my ocean. So I get to, help my ocean, help my love, get healthier, because once we start to plant it, there's other people who want to plant it too, but they're not having success because they don't have the kind of proprietary understanding that this group has. But once the more kelp starts happening, then they're going to be more starfish, more abalone. The sea urchins will be eaten by the abalone and the starfish, so it'll be a balance. It'll be more balance, and there'll be more other creatures that come in as well, different fish and different creatures that all come in. So it's really exciting. And that just happened because I'm so in love with the ocean, right? Same with like how I'm helping with Bobby Kennedy. I've known him for 33 years. I think he's amazing. I watched him clean up the Hudson when I lived in New York. He's always been great with everybody, like very inclusive, very, you'd go to any event, there'd be Republicans, there'd be Native Americans, there'd be Democrats, there'd be children, there'd be really old people, like it's just like every mix of person. And I always love that because everybody cares about the environment, pretty much. Not everybody. Some people do not, but many people do care about the environment. And so that's something he did. And I just watched him do that. And I saw the difference in the Hudson River. I mean, it went from catching on fire. It went from the fish being blue because General Motors was throwing blue paint in there to one of the most biodiverse, rich, beautiful, clean rivers all the way on the eastern coast down to Ecuador. So it's like he really did amazing stuff. And so I have this kind of depth of appreciation for him and for the way he thinks. He looks at where the corruption is. He's been fighting corruption in our government and in these corporations for 40 plus years. And I just see how his mind works, where he looks and sees what the problem is, and then he sees what needs to be done to fix it. So he's just amazing to me. But I'm just doing this because I really love him, and I love our country, and I love our Constitution. And I think both the other two people who are running have violated our Constitution. So I just I just love, and so my love kind of carries me into things that I like to do, and it just serves me. And so I want to talk about Twitter being my dojo, not just Twitter, but any social media or any situation, actually, any person. Is that okay, or did you have something else?
Of course. No, yeah.
Okay, so I talk about Bobby on Twitter, right? Because I like him and I love him and I want him to win, and I think he's the only one that I think can actually do to clear the corruption in the country and to really get us back on track. I mean, he's got so many good ideas, but
he even has Alex Jones' gravelly voice. The people should love him more.
He has something called spasmodic dysphonia. Spasmodic dysphonia can come from trauma, and it can come from the flu vaccine. It's one of the listed things on the flu vaccine, which he used to take. And so he has that, and there are people in other people in his family who have it too. So it could be from the trauma of, that he had growing up. But and it could be from, something in the vaccines that does something that I don't know. But so I want to talk about this because I think if more people did it, they'd have more fun. I use Twitter as my love dojo. I basically use all of life, but I am on Twitter a little bit every day. So not every day, but almost every day. So I use Twitter as my love dojo. And what I mean by that is, now I'm already starting out loving everybody because that's how I basically healed my body, is being in a state of love and appreciation and pretending I was healthy. And that really changed my body. But so I already started out loving, but I can go backwards. But just to give you the overall thing, I just practice loving people who hate me, loving people who hate Bobby, loving people who call names, loving people who do. And it's just really fun. Now that sounds really hard and it doesn't sound doable, but if you guys are interested, I can show how to do it so that it's easier for most people. Because it's not like a natural thing that most people can do. It's just been natural because I've been doing it. But so every person makes me love the world more. Even the big meanies, even the big mean meanies, they make me love the world more. What
I've started doing is if I read a comment and it makes me triggered and it makes me want to respond, then I acknowledge that they've, succeeded at something they were trying to do. So I'll like their comment, which is like an acknowledgement, but also kind of confusing because they're expecting me to engage it further. And I'm just saying, no, good job. You're right. That worked. I felt
Andreas, I've seen Andreas do this for years in person too. We'd be in a situation at some party or something, and somebody says some negative comment or whatever, and Andreas will say something that is so out of left field and applicable at the same time, but in a way that makes you think. So I've seen his tactic is to get people to think in ways that they wouldn't normally approach something, and he'll do it in such a way that no one's expecting it. and there's a spontaneity and a creativity to it, and that's always impressed me. You know, because everyone's expecting, like, there's a script, like, this is what you're supposed to say to this, and then it just goes on and on, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah.
But what do you recommend? I mean, tell us your strategy for, you know, dealing with people that they're trying to get us a rise of hate out of us, right?
Right. Okay. I have to go backwards first a little bit before we go, because you can't really involve other people at the beginning.
Mhm.
So this is how I started. The first thing I started to understand is that my emotions are guiding me. They're guiding me if I'm going in the right direction or if I'm going against it. When I feel good, I'm going in the right direction. When I'm triggered, when I'm angry, I'm going in the opposite direction. So that's when I started to realize, oh, you know, I've been going in the direction of what I want, in the direction of what I hate, in the direction of what I want, in the direction of what I hate. That's something I had been doing my whole life, right? And so I realized, oh, I don't want to keep doing that. I want to just go in the direction of what I want. And this was something I decided like 15 years ago. So in my first book, Chronic Pleasure book, it's Chronic Pleasure, and it's how to let go of pain and fatigue and have vibrant energy. That's the first book. In that book, I kind of give the whole, like the purple book, the brighter purple book. I give a whole, and it's got a little Deepak quote at the top. That's how you know which one it is. Yes, good manipulation of the images.
That's me.
That's very good. So in that book, I give all the ways that I basically healed my body. Most of the ways. I mean, I didn't want it to be like a tome, but it's a pretty thick book, and it has a lot of things in there. But one of the things to know is that your emotions are an indication if you're going in the direction you want. If you feel good, you're going in the direction you want. If you feel bad, you're going against the way you want. So your way of doing it, Andreas, is really brilliant, where you say thank you, or you hearting something, because you're kind of going, wow, he did a good job, you know. So you're not taking it personally, even though the triggering was personal. So that's really brilliant. The other thing to know is that the brain takes its messages from the heart. There's more nerves going from the heart to the brain than from the brain to the heart. So it's like the 405 freeway that's in Los Angeles, you know, from the heart to the brain, and it's like, you know, the one highway, you know, which is all curvy from the brain to the heart. And so I'm
imagining all the arteries, or the bad arteries in the 405 now.
But the thing that's so cool is the heart. To me, if I keep my heart open, and I have practices in my book in order to keep my heart open. If I keep my heart open, it is the best indication of how to be psychic, how to be intuitive, and how to be guided, so that you can respond to people in a way that feels really good. So those are two things I do. One is I know what my emotions mean. If I haven't felt bad in years now, but let's say I did, if I had a negative emotion, it would mean that I was perceiving something incorrectly. It wouldn't mean that that person is a bad person. It means I'm misperceiving it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Because I can't see it. If I saw it from my heart, and my heart is open and full of love, which is your natural state. That's what babies come out as. You can see the love in their eyes because they're present with that love. So if my heart is open and I'm moving through the world, I feel that love. And then when somebody says something like that's a big meanie or something like that, that's just what I call them because I think it's funny. But when that happens, it doesn't change my heart anymore. It used to, but I learned that, oh, they're just out of alignment. They're just moving in a direction that doesn't feel good to them. So they're not going to get what they want. I understand that. I hope they do get what they want. I hope they turn themselves around. But it's not personal to me. It's just that they're triggered in some way. And it's not personal to me. I just, so I started to love them. And then the other thing I do, and this is kind of funny so most people get reactive about something because it's unhealed within them. Whether it is that feeling of powerlessness when you're 3 and you can't stop mom and dad from fighting, where it's transferred into my guy has to win, right? Like I don't have any power on my own. My guy has to win. Then somebody's getting triggered and they're not, when you get triggered, you're not exactly who you are. You seem to do it very quickly. So that's a good sign, Andreas. but you're not exactly who you are because you're triggered, you know? And so when you're triggered, you don't feel good. And now you're moving away from what you want. So the thing I do, like, let's say somebody says, oh, you're just a dumb actress, right? Let's say, because people are cute. So I'll just say, I just say to myself, God, I love the part of myself that's a dumb actress, you know. And if somebody says, or if I say, you know, somebody's corrupt, let's say I say somebody's corrupt, I have practiced, or I love the part of myself that's corrupt. It doesn't mean I'm going to bring more of that corruption up in my life. What it means is that when somebody says I'm stupid or I'm dumb, it doesn't hit me. So I think of all the terrible things. You know, I love Bill Gates. You know, I don't want anything to do with him, and I don't think he should be. I think he should be in jail. But I'm going to love him because I don't want to get triggered when I see him doing something that is like evil. I love Donald Trump. I love Joe Biden. I love all the wars. I love the Ukrainians. I love the Russians. I love the Israelis. I love the Palestinians. Not necessarily do I love what any of those people are doing, but I'm loving the people so that I'm not activated by them. And so I take every insult that somebody says, and some people say really like a long string of insults, and I'm like, oh man, that's so cute, I love it. And so I take every insult, you know, I'm stupid, I'm a motherfucker, I'm a blah blah blah, whatever it is. I'm far left, I'm far right, I'm MAGA. You know, so I'm just like, I love my far left part of myself, I love the MAGA part of myself, I love the, you know, and I just take whatever they say as an opportunity. And what it does is it makes me laugh, but it also keeps my heart open because I can just, and so, and I had done this before I ever got on, before there even was internet that I knew of. I mean, I had been doing this for like, I've been doing this for years. And what I've seen is, you know, like when, you know, somebody would say something great to me, I would take that in and say, I love the part of myself that is, you know, has the body of a 25-year-old, whatever. Somebody said that today, and I was like, thank you. Yes. As a body of a 25-year-old. And I love the part of myself that's an old, you know, mother. I want to, I know I already cussed before, but anyway. So
You're
like,
in. Don't worry. You're in. Don't worry. You're out of here.
Yeah. So it's just a practice of taking all the things. And even if I see somebody saying stuff about Bobby, I love the stuff they say about Bobby to me. I love it in me so that I can just be calm and relaxed. And then nobody bothers me. You know, I love all the part of myself that's propagandized. I love the part of myself that is buying the fear. I love the part of myself that's prejudiced. I love the part of myself that's hateful. I love the part of myself that's not prejudiced. I love the part of myself that loves everybody, right? So I kind of just bring my love into all of it because I think that's how it is. When both times that I remember dying, you know, and in this body and coming back, both times there was a profound sense of being loved, accepted, belonging, known, understood, and free. That energy is what I think everybody does anything for. Smoke pot for that. I don't smoke pot for that. Any drugs, but people smoke pot to get to that space. People drink to get that space. People eat sugar to get to that space. People have sex to get to that space. People enjoy, you know, go get in love or have sex or whatever they do, you know, to get into that space. But when you realize you can be in that space with practice.
Yeah. I was really impacted by RFK's explanation of what happened to him after 14 years of addiction when he was in rehab. And he had this very, you know, direct insight of this is something I still need to sit with. Like, it's so strange. Like, I've sat in Zendos for like weeks at a time, and I can do that. Like, I can sit and I can be present. That's easy for me. What's not so easy for me is in the hustle and bustle of my world. And it's easy for me to get tripped up in that. Like, I can be present when I'm there to be present. Like, when, and so the challenge is then translating that over. Like, you know, he said the willingness or the ability to be okay with discomfort. And then when he was like, because he saw that his addiction was stemming out of wanting to get out of this uncomfortable feeling. And it started after his father was killed, and then he did LSD for the first time, and then the next day he had a bad trip, and somebody offered him meth, and he did meth, and he's like, from there it was 14 years of him just trying to distract himself from what it was that he was experiencing with that LSD trip. And so like that's something that I think everyone can relate to, because we all get uncomfortable, and then the way that he was communicating how synchronicity played into that with Sisyphus. So not it's just like an allegory, but like how this really relates, like what the allegory is speaking to, because it's, like Camus said, one must imagine Sisyphus happy. And you're like, how can he be happy? He's having to move this boulder and it rolls back down. He has to do the same thing over and over again.
It's nature.
And yeah. And so I'm like, first of all, to hear a political candidate talking about synchronicity in such a direct experiential way, this isn't, crystal hippie stuff. This is real, like nitty gritty, like, and then for the 40 years of his life from there, having that realization play into his ability to accomplish all this. So like yesterday I went to a farmer's market I'm volunteering at a table for RFK, and people are walking by and there's a picture of RFK there. And man, some of the things that people say when they're just walking by and they're like, RFK is scary, or they go, oh, he's fucking crazy, or whatever it is that they say. And when people come up, and it's real, I'm really enjoying it. I'm looking forward to doing that for the next 5 months, because it's just like, what an opportunity that becomes to meet people, like, and to know that people have so much information that they have access to. And like, I mean, I'm on X a lot. Like I used to do Facebook, and Facebook booted me for things that were fine to say a few months after I said them, and so it's like, that was really hurtful, because I had all these friends that I lost through that. Like people, when I traveled, like I spent time in Sweden, I spent time in London, I had connections that I only kept through Facebook. So it's just like all of that was cleared. And so that was kind of devastating. But at the same time, Andreas has pointed out, he's like, Facebook is like a small town and X is like a city. And none of these things matter all that much, because it's freaking social media and it's not a real exchange. And so I'm really enjoying this, because I'm like, wow, I get to have real exchanges. And it's easier for me to navigate the social dynamics in the internet world, because I can check into my body in a more direct, like, it's like, I can stop and think before I respond. There's no pressure to respond to something right away. I can actually process for a second and think about how it is that I want to articulate something. But I think there's one main thing, and you call it, you speak to it as love. I think you could just as easily say like presence, like you could be present with this aspect of yourself or present with that aspect of yourself. And that allows you to be the witness. And then there's room for transformation. If all you're doing all the time is reacting, nothing will ever transform, because you're just, you're caught up in it. And it's just, and there's also that compulsion of just like, everything is, how does this relate to me? How does this relate to me? And I think it's really healthy to, I think it's more than just like, it's not detached in a sense of being disassociated. You're actually more in yourself when you can see something objectively for what it is, and approach it from there, rather than, oh, this is an attack on me. Like if you see a fucking lion in the jungle, there's an instinctual thing that's like, oh, I gotta run away, like this is, I gotta do something, and it's like, but when we're talking to people and the ego can't, nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. There's no actual threat there. And so I try to remember that, because it's important. And it's funny how easy something so profoundly, true can be so overlooked, or you can end up with blind spots around that,
Yeah. Yeah. And that thing about, I'm trying to get away from my discomfort, what you were talking about that Bobby said.
Yeah.
That's what most people are trying to do. And it doesn't work. What is really interesting is, like, that's why I love all my feelings. I remember once having this awareness that if I could feel anything, I could do anything. Because if I'm not running away from my feelings, if I'm not trying to escape what I'm feeling, I have this power. And so, part of the thing that you said, it was so good about, understanding yourself and taking that time and realize, it's okay. And being in the farmer's market and being at the table and all of that stuff. It's a great opportunity. Yeah, because I'm talking to my friends in real life too, or I wear bobby pins, bobby pins. I wear
that would be. Why didn't he market that? What is he doing?
But I'll wear a bobby pin, when I go out someplace, and people say, "Oh, Kennedy, is that the guy that's running? Who's a vaccine freak?" I go, "Yeah, except for what he actually wants is safe vaccines."
I thought Fauci was the vaccine freak. I don't know. Keep going.
I love Fauci, but so it's really fun to play. I mean, I don't like what he did, but I love who he is. I just love everybody because everybody is God in drag, if you will. The whole. I mean, really, everybody is God in drag, and if you just know that everybody is a divine being, that there's a reverence and a sacredness for each person.
I love that.
It makes it so beautiful. So people can come at me, and I don't care. I just like
What do you think about the virtual versus the post-truth? So many people are experiencing Twitter all day. They after COVID, a lot of people never go outside anymore, or during that entire time. These kids are growing up. They're going to have VR, AI actors and actresses replace people. How much of that virtual world versus real world? What do you see in that dynamic?
Well, to me, there's always a benefit to meeting people in real life. But there's a convenience, like we can do this here, and you guys are in another area. You're far from me, so we can do this here. So there's a benefit in that sense. But I like to be with people. I go to as many parties and events and things that I can do where there's real people. Anytime somebody says, "Do you want to meet a friend of mine?" I'm like, "Yes." I almost don't care. I mean, unless they're like a serial killer. I don't care. I just love meeting people. I love people. I think people are amazing. And I learn from every single person. I learn from the ornery ones, and I learn from the kind ones, and I learn from the big meanies, and I learn from the liars, and I learn from everybody. Everybody informs me on how to love more. They all open my heart. That's what I mean by the Twitter dojo. It's making me get, a 6-tuple black belt in loving more. And staying calm. I just don't get triggered anymore.
So you're mastering the virtual realm, but do you think that other people are you I don't know, worried's not the right word. Do you love the potential future that we have because of the virtual world? Do you think the virtual world's?
I'm not afraid of anything. I don't have any fear anymore.
Yeah.
If I did have fear, I would love it. I'm just gonna, now that you bring that up, I will love that. I love the virtual world. Elon said something the other day about he said
Of humanity.
Yeah, how we're looking at AI, and AI will be so ingrained in our culture that you won't know what's real and what is not. And he said it could be happening right now. And I was like, well, I love not knowing what's real and what's not. I'm just not going to get afraid. I know that we could be, Biden is encouraging Ukraine to bomb into Russia, which could be provoking a bombing.
A lot of things. It could go a lot of ways, but World War III is most of the ways it could go. Yeah.
Right. And so I love World War III. I love nuclear weapons. I want to say, one of those places, what blue zones are? That's the place where people live a lot longer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Santa Cruz in Japan. Yeah.
Right. And one of the places where it's a blue zone is Nagasaki, which was bombed in the 50s. Yeah. So there's something that some people who grew up there and saw the bomb didn't get bombed. Like something happened. There are things that happen where something doesn't happen. And I've seen lots of fire chiefs say, oh, there was this huge fire, but the fire was just skipping from one place to another place, and it would skip right over certain places and just the other place. And so it makes me really feel like, okay, we've got more power. If you're afraid of the fire, you attract what you are. That's part of the other thing to know. If you're angry and hateful, you attract anger and hatefulness unless you talk to me, because I won't get angry and hateful. But if you, and maybe there's other people like me, but yeah. But for that, and then if you have love, you just attract loving experiences more and more, and I'm getting so many loving experiences. I helped somebody just a little bit. I introduced him to somebody. I like connecting people up, and I liked his brilliance and I liked his ideas. And he said, can you meet me at the Apple store? I said, sure. And he goes, okay, which computer do you want? And I said, I like this one. And he goes, okay, get her that one, get her the top memory, the top RAM. He goes, let me see your phone. And I give him my phone and he says, oh, you need a new iPhone. Here, how about this one? And it's like the top of the line.
It's getting hooked up at the
and, and he's like, you need Apple Care and you need a case, a phone case, and you need an external hard drive. And I was like, oh my God, thank you so much. And he goes, well, you really helped me. And I said, oh, that's so sweet. Thank you so much. And then another person said, I'm just texting with this other person, never met him. And he said, here, I want to just give you $1,235. And I said, why? And he said, because, you've just been so sweet and so helpful. And then he lives far. I don't know if I'll ever meet him. And I was like, wow, that's really sweet. Thank you. And then somebody else is doing all this extra work for me. And then somebody else connected me with a potential TV show that might be really fun. And then somebody else, it's just like all these things come because I'm in this place of, like you were talking about kids, open and receptive and lighthearted.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're using the term love, like in myself, I'm processing and I'm thinking to myself, this is a case where I don't think the description's the described. So like you can point at something, but like love in that sense wouldn't necessarily have an opposite. Like people like love has a substitute, right? That we call love. But it's not necessarily that. Like you can have, a strong ego need for a more secure sense of self that another person temporarily provides. That's not necessarily love. If love can flip into its opposite in an instant, then it's likely not love, but something ego related. And so, love is transcendent. Like there's was it in the gospel, love is patient, love is kind, it doesn't envy, it doesn't boast, it is not self-seeking, like all of that is transcendent. Like it's not something that you can necessarily because when somebody speaks in these terms, sometimes when they're like, I approach this with love, I can't help but think of Donnie Darko and the teacher with because they're presenting duality, fear and love, and you're describing something, and correct me if I'm wrong, something that transcends the duality, which is probably part of for me, I'm like, this feels like the political sphere right now feels like an externalization of our own psyche, because you have these two polar extremes and everything is spoken to in terms of whataboutism. Like if you have a criticism for one, they go, oh, well, what about this guy? And it's like, well, they're both what they are. And I feel that way about fear is part of love, right? Yeah, and the substitute for ultimate love, which we call love, which isn't necessarily that. So it's like there's a duality that exists, that I think it's almost like a test, almost every day.
I heard Karen say no.
Test,
I'm hanging on that no.
Yeah. I'll just tell you how I understand love. To me, love is the experience of allowing infinite intelligence, God, creativity, whatever you call it, to move through me, so that I don't have my ego involved. I don't care what happens. I'm just allowing that rush of energy. It's a Niagara Falls of power that moves through me. And that feeling is a visceral feeling and it's an emotional feeling. So the visceral part of it feels like a energy. It feels like rush. It feels like power. It feels like I want to sit up straight. The emotional part feels reverent. It feels sacred. It feels bonded. It feels like I belong and they belong, whoever they are. You belong. It feels like you are beautiful. It feels like I treasure each person. It feels meaningful. It feels powerful, emotionally powerful, but also soft. So it feels like this beautiful thing. And I'm playing in the political world. So there's a duality in the political world, but I don't feel that duality. I'm still in that place of expansion.
Right. It's that humility. And you see that, sorry to just be a RFK supporter over here, but RFK has a humility that I've seen.
We'll go deep into RFK.
And it's it's difficult for a lot of people because they're used to people who just, they say their opinion, they stick to their guns, they won't admit when they've been shown data that conflicts with their previous understanding or their current understanding. And like to have the humility to admit not just that you were wrong, but to be able to explain why you're wrong. And that actually relates to, like, there's been times in my life where one mistake that I've made repeatedly is that people will apologize to me when they've wronged me in my life. And the lesson that I've learned, that I'm learning that I have to respond to that with, is I need specifics. I need people to tell me exactly why it is that they're apologizing to me. Because I've had people give these kind of general apologies, and then I find out later that they don't have any regret or anything for the specific things that I felt where they had wronged me. And so now it's a test where it's like I have to ask. So it's like with RFK, it's like he'll say something, and then, you know, and he'll be like, well, I didn't know this factor. This changes things. Like, that's actually what I want from a friend, let alone like a politician. You know what I mean? Like, that's like an ideal kind of thing. I need specifics. You know, like, and so humility and dignity to me are the same exact thing. Like, they're two different terms for the same thing. They're a state of being. Pride and shame oscillate. One's a contraction, one's an expansion. Somebody pays you a compliment and you expand out and you feel, oh, I feel good. They just gave me a compliment. I think, and then somebody insults you and then you contract and you close down. And it's like that, those oscillate back and forth. Whereas it seems like there's a transcendent way of being that is just one state. Like, it doesn't go through this whole back and forth thing, you know?
Exactly.
So,
exactly. You're a very deep thinker, and I like it. It's so nice. One of the things I found is that if that flow is moving through me, if my heart is open, if I feel connected to that peacefulness, somebody could say I have purple hair, which I don't, or they could say I'm a stupid cunt. I don't care what they say. They could say something. It doesn't matter, because I know I can feel who I am. I feel that power. So it can't, and when somebody says something nice, you know, like the person who said, you know, you have the body of a 25-year-old. So that was a nice thing. Does it make me like get conceited? No, because it's still the same thing. I know who I am. I know I have a body like that. That's just because I just decided that when I was a kid, that I was never going to grow up. So I grow in wisdom, but I'm not going to grow old. I meant I was, you know, it was from that song, I won't grow up, I won't grow up. I can't remember what the whole song was, but it was from Tom Sawyer. Never go to school, never take the rules, something like that. I can't remember, but I thought that was I was really into that song as a kid. And I would hear all these grownups say, oh, I'm over 30 and my back is hurting. And I'm like, God damn them. I'm not going to have my back hurt when I'm over 30, you know, and oh, I'm doing this and now I'm all fat. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, right.
No. Yeah. And so has nothing to do with ego. It's a reverence for the creation that is all around us. That is the creation that is you, or the audience, anybody listening. You are a creation. You've created yourself and you were created. That combination, it's a co-creation. And everything around you is infused with the divine. Everything within you is infused with the divine. So there's no separation ever. There's that sense of being so connected. I know I'm connected to everyone. And I love everyone. They don't have to know it for me to know it.
Right. Like you were saying earlier that, you know, you're like, some people don't care about the environment, which is true. And at the same time, on a certain level, everyone's going to care about the environment if something gets to the point where it's affecting them being able to get from
last episode of the dinosaur show. Yeah.
The last episode.
There's no more air. Yeah.
Right. Right. Now you care.
Then.
So,
yeah. Or where, you know, Bill Gates is putting particles, or is going to put particles up into the sky to block the sun. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's great. Let's just stop ourselves from getting vitamin D, which is one of the most important hormones you can get, or vitamins you can get. Hold on.
Yeah. Yeah, well, remember that company Make Sunsets, right? Because they couldn't get that to work in the United States right away. So they started just blasting Mexico. And the Mexican government was like, stop that. Please, no more stratospheric aerosol injections. Company Make Sunsets. What a great name for an aerosol stratospheric injection, Make Sunsets. Right.
That's hilarious. Yeah, where they're doing it all over where I live, I have really big windows, so I can see planes going by making those things. And I called the airport. I was like, can you please help me understand what they're doing? What's in those things? Have you checked the ingredients in the things? And they wouldn't call me back.
Of course not.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I'm opening up the can of worms.
Well, I mean, I love this world. Like I enjoy it as a podcaster. It's hilarious, but there's a lot of funny things happening this year. The election season is coming. Like, how do you see the world right now? Like, why is it so important for RFK? Like, what's going on that's so pivotal?
Our country and the world most of the world captured by corporations that don't care about people or the planet. And so
beings incapable of love. Okay, sorry, keep going.
I mean, they're just all they've done. The whole reason, the Bill Gates, the Fauci's, all they have done, the Trumps, the Bidens, anybody else, all those people, all they've done is they have blocked themselves from that rush.
Yeah.
From that flow of life, that infinite intelligence flowing through them. They block themselves for it, so they can't see the benefit of the earth, and they want to rest from the earth. It's kind of like, like those kind of people treat the earth like a sex slave. Let's make it procreate. Come on, we're going to add more GMO. We're going to add more pesticides. We'll make it procreate, as opposed to somebody who listens to the earth. Somebody who understands the earth and understands her communications, then the earth will produce such abundance that it's off the charts. On my podcast, I have a podcast called Stories We Love. I got a little obsessed, like 5 or 6 or 7 different regenerative farmers. And some of them are growing oases in the Sahara Desert. Some of them have taught D.D. Pierce House, that was John Liu who grows oases in the desert. D.D. Pierce House has taught over 700,000 farms in Uttar Pradesh how to go regenerative, and they're feeding more people, and people are getting healthier. And then they started teaching other farms and other states in India, and then now they're working with people in Africa. And Dr. Elaine Ingham, she runs something called the Soil Food Web, which both of those people, John Liu and D.D. Pierce House, work with. She teaches large-scale farms how to use compost, drones for compost, and to go without tilling, so that they just use, if they have cows or goats or any kind of creature, they do the tilling. They just walk and that's the tilling. So people can sell like $1 million worth of farm equipment and GMO seeds and all of that kind of stuff. They can sell it and make like $1 million just to start out, and use that $1 million to buy a couple of drones to go over, sending compost tea all over their farm, and helping the oil get healthy. That's one thing I love about Bobby, is he wants to bring back healthy soil, and our nutrients come from our soil. Soil has a microbiome, and conventional farming kills the microbiome in the soil. In fact, glyphosate, which Trump's EPA said was safe and that Trump allowed more of, glyphosate causes non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Bobby sued Monsanto, and so far I think they've won over $11 billion against Monsanto. And so Bobby understands this, and he understands what you need. He's got friends. I interviewed Joel Salatin, who has a really great regenerative farm in the East Coast, and he has a great way of doing it. And he uses electric fences where his cows go in this area for one day, and then they move the fence, and then the cows go over here, and then the chickens follow the cows, and then the pigs follow the chicken. And so it's this whole movement, And I took a soil microbiology class. I bought a microscope. I got very excited about this. But so I think
new campaign slogan, Bobby knows. I think that's
but I think that in our world today, we have gotten so far away from understanding these things. People are using American-made toxic chemicals in farming. They're using American-made processed foods, or we're using their processed foods or their toxic farming. And people have lost touch with the freedom that we get from being healthy. Right now, we spend 20% of our gross domestic product on chronic diseases. 54% of kids have a chronic disease, and over 60% of adults have a chronic disease. This is something Bobby's very aware of.
Yeah.
We have the most expensive healthcare in the world, and our health situation is worse than most countries. I also think it's really important to keep our Constitution and our Bill of Rights, which the WHO can violate. And so that's something that's really key. And Bobby wants to get us out of the WHO. Trump did a bait and switch, at least according to whatever the magazine I read was, where he said, I'm going to defund the WHO. But what he actually did was he took money out of the WHO, millions of dollars that the US gave to the WHO every year. He took that out, but he gave billions to Gavi. Gavi is funded by Bill Gates, and Bill Gates funds the WHO. And so he basically funded the WHO through Gavi. Yeah, he just went around it, bait and switch. Do this, and then I'll do this, and da-da-da. So guys,
this might upset some people here, but it's worth going into, I think, and maybe not. And you can tell me if I'm wrong, but like, there's a lot of people out there that are so excited about Trump, and they're thinking like, okay, now especially because what we liked about him before was that everybody hated him. Well, now he's been arrested, which proves he's like the man of the people, right? Because 9 out of 10 people get arrested in their life. So looking at these things, like looking
9
at
out of 10 people get arrested. Is that true?
I believe that 9 out of 10 American males will be in prison at jail at some point in their lifetime. Yes, it's crazy. Yeah, America's messed up.
Yeah.
But thinking about the track record,
a drink tank,
it could just be anything. Yeah, but we live in a very Soviet state. The point is, if we look at the track record, and that was a good example, like what can we expect? All right, like even the QAnoners, he didn't do any of the things that they wanted him to do. So like, what is it that we could expect if Trump were to be elected, right? Like,
okay, so forgive me.
You're forgiven. It's like a Catholic thing. I'll forgive you before you sin.
So Trump right now has pharma people as his senior advisor. He's getting billions of money from big oil, and they're saying what they want, and he's taking notes. So he's copying Bobby. He's copied so many things of Bobby's. I've written a whole list of things that he's copied. So
that's his least offensive sin, actually, is to copy Bobby Kennedy.
I know, but he's copying Bobby. But do you remember those kids when you were in school who copied the math questions of those people? They never could do the answers on their own.
Good point.
And so I don't think like Trump copied Bobby about regenerative farming, for example. He's not going to know how to do regenerative farming. He's not going to know who to hire to do regenerative farming. He's on the side of Monsanto is funding him right now.
Yeah.
Pfizer is funding him, and military industrial complex is funding him. Raytheon.
He needs money. They have the money. Yeah. Like, what does people think is going to happen? Right.
Right. And so like Bobby just isn't going to, like, no pharma company is going to fund Bobby. No.
Yeah.
No military company. No Monsanto place is going to fund Bobby. So the part of the thing with Trump is he says things, but if you watch. So I learned this a long time ago, like 30 years ago. I learned don't listen to what a man says. Watch what he does. Right?
What he does, yeah.
And what Trump does is the opposite of what he says. He said he would release Assange, and he didn't. He said he would empty the, reveal the JFK things. He didn't. He said he would finish the wall. He didn't actually finish it. He got close, but he didn't finish it. He only went 455 miles, and there's more miles than that. And then he left, his stuff. And then Biden was partisan and went against it. So Biden shouldn't have done what he did either. But I just think like if you also Trump was saying to Hillary, in 2016 or 2015, he was saying, he had all these, lock her up, lock her up, lock her up. So there was all this stuff about locking Hillary up. And Trump has a whole video out there, which I could send you guys, that says, if you have a felony, you should not be able to run for president. And so he told Hillary in the second debate, he said to her, she said something, and he said, yeah, from jail. Like, so he's threatening her at the debate, said he's going to put her in jail. And now he's,
yeah.
You become the thing you hate. It's so poetic.
We want accountability. And I think even that's the thing with Republicans, is that they want accountability in government. They don't want it to start with Trump. They want it to start with these people who should be held accountable. There's reason to hold a lot of these people accountable. And I mean, the standard, my God, like everything is so strange. Like, I'm like, Kavanaugh applied for a job. That was essentially a job interview. And whether he did what he did or not, he was asked a question. Like, I was thinking about it. I was like, if I was in a job interview and somebody said, hey, this woman claims that years ago, this incident happened and you were forceful and you were drunk or whatever, and maybe you black out or whatever. And they're like, do you have a problem with blacking out? And my response to that was, I like beer. Just like super defensively. Do you think I would get that job? And the point being is that the standard for these positions, that's the highest judge in the country. And I'm not saying like, I mean, it's like what the standard was, say, 10, 20 years ago versus what it is now. It's like, so what is it then? Like, where's the line? I would like to see like some serious accountability, that if people do things in government that a regular person would do, that they would actually be held more accountable than us peasants. You know what I mean? Like,
that's something that Bobby will do. One of the things he said is that if a government official lies in accordance to his job, he'll be fired or she'll be fired. Like, that's really important. He already said a long time ago, I don't know if he'll still do it if he becomes president, but a long time ago, he said he would prosecute Fauci and Bricks and Collins and Alex Azar and Scott Gottlieb and Trump and, all the people, Biden, that were all involved in the COVID scam. I mean, the people in the news were still telling people to take the COVID thing when we already knew it didn't stop you from getting it and it didn't stop you from giving it. So and they were still trying to guilt people in. That's why I don't respond to guilt. I don't respond to propaganda. I can feel when it's propagandizing and I just start laughing at it, Mm-hmm. But I think what I really like about Bobby is he honors the Constitution. Trump said he wants to take the Constitution apart. Like he said, we got to take out every rule. Trump unbanned banned toxic chemicals. So there were toxic chemicals that were banned and Trump unbanned them. He deregulated GMO. That means you could have GMO in something and not know you have GMO in something. Right. That's not cool, and you got to have regulations in some ways. You don't need regulation on everything, but you need in farming and all that kind of stuff, you need to know. I think they should put in the regulation. I haven't told people this, but I think it'd be great if you could look on your meat or your vegetables or whatever, and it says, apple and compost, or it says apple and wax and pesticides and appeal, which is something that Bill Gates has made, which you can't wash off. So I would just I would just like all that on there. I would like it if there's something in a restaurant where you could say, okay, you're going to have this and you're going to get this kind of pesticide and this kind of pesticide and this kind of GMO in this food. Mm-hmm. I think that would be honest, informed consent, because these pesticides are toxic, Yeah,
I mean, it's understandable that people would have the reaction that they have. Because I have the same reaction when it comes to a lot of the green initiatives, because they have some other backdoor thing going on where they're not really they have other agendas behind it. And if you pay attention, you're sensitive to that. That doesn't mean that you want to be against environmentalism across the board. It just means that if it's going to happen, you want it to be on the up and up. You don't want these kind of opportunistics using that as a front. It's like, you know, the two images of the planes both dropping bombs, and one of them it says BLM and has a pride flag, and the other one's just whatever. You know what I mean? It's like they're both dropping bombs here. What are you guys doing? So, you know, yeah.
That's a really good point, because if you look at environmental things, there's the kind of environmentalist that is trying to use the environment to create control over people and control and lack of food. They're using the environment to do things like in a lot of places in Europe, they're culling their cows, right? And they did that in Denmark. You were talking about Denmark. They're killing their cows, you know, and the farmers are like, wait. And the farmers are being paid to kill their cows. And they're not doing that because cows are bad. Yes, cows create methane, but this is so interesting. There's a guy named Walter Jenne. He's in Australia. He's so brilliant. He was saying that if you have cows walking on natural grasses, there's something in the grasses called methanotropin, which when the cow eats it, the methane goes away. It can mediate 100 times more methane than a cow can make. But then let me just say the finish of this. So there's the one that are trying to use the environment for global control, which I don't want. And then there's the other kind like Bobby, who wants to listen to nature, who wants to work with nature, who wants to remove the pollution in our water, in our airs, in our skies, in our soil, and just help nature do what she knows how to do, which is be abundant and prolific and creative and innovative and genius. That's what nature does naturally if you don't mess with her. So that's the two different kinds.
I think I'm familiar with who you're talking about. Is it the man who did a TED Talk that was responsible for the death of so many elephants, and he deeply regretted that? And he's doing desertification. So all these places that were turned into deserts across the world, he was turning them into lush, like really thriving areas. He did it in several places, and I believe Africa was one of them. You said Australia. Is he in Australia? I don't know if it's the same guy.
So Walter Jenne doesn't do that. He mostly lectures right now. He did the first cloud seeding, but part of the reason we get rain, the way he did it was with nature. So that when you get rain, what happens is trees, okay, so all the soil has a microbiome. We have microbiome on our skin, in our mouth, in our sex organs, in our eyes, in our ears, probably everywhere. Microbiome. That's the billions and quadrillions of germs and viruses and bacteria and fungi that are in you. Walter, okay, so the way you get actual rain, naturally, not from fake rain, but trees have a microbiome, and then trees go up, and the sky has a microbiome. The air we breathe has a microbiome. Trees go up, and then their microbiome comes up out of the tree, and it goes into the atmosphere, which has a microbiome. And so then in that microbiome are, you know, all these germs and bacteria and viruses and fungi naturally. And then what will happen is it makes the water molecules so heavy that you get rain. That's the natural way. So what Walter Jenne did was he used those same kind of microbiome to he just put up a little more than was normal to create more rain. But the way people are doing it now, they're putting in, I think this is what ABC said, I don't know if it's true, but they're putting in nanoparticles and nanoparticles of silver. And, you know, that's got to be really toxic. Like how many?
Yeah, I would think so.
How many plants can breathe if there's silver, you know, everywhere? So, you know, so they're doing that, but they're doing it in a fake way. So you can do things in a good way. You can do things in a way that's harmful. And so, so the whole thing to me is finding people who will work with who understand nature and understand how nature does things and works with the brilliance of nature, using nature as the teacher.
Yeah, This had to do with cows, mostly just cattle, and we've been relating for so long that cattle were the problem, and we need to do. I've heard Bill Gates talk about it. They're talking about cow farts and what a huge problem they are for the environment or whatever. And then meanwhile, they're like, you have to. You were describing it yourself, where you're saying you move them along, so they go from this area to this area, and the way that they affect the soil, and you end up with these effects, and it's like. It's actually the opposite. We're so concerned about the cattle, but we're just leaving them in one spot and calling it a day, when really you should be strategically moving them along seasonally to assist daily. Yeah, well, daily and beyond. I mean, like large areas. Like and it's amazing what they can accomplish with that. It's one of the best TED Talks I've ever seen, and I wish I could remember the guy's name, but yeah, it was like if you look up,
it could be. It could be Joel Salatin or John Liu. There's a ton of people who are doing it, though. There's so many great regenerative farmers who are teaching other people. Is that it?
I don't know. I was thinking the Omnivore's Dilemma, right? Like, was that Omnivore's Dilemma guy Michael Pollan? Maybe was it Michael Pollan? I don't know.
I haven't met Michael Pollan yet, but I have met Joel Salatin. He's funny. He wrote a book that's called. Because he's a regenerative farmer, he wrote a book that's called "Everything I Want to Do Is Illegal."
Yeah.
Oh, this guy's name is Alan Savory.
Oh, Alan Savory. Yeah,
Savory.
I haven't met him yet, but I've been listening to some of his stuff. He's really genius, also. Yeah, he's a really.
Oh yeah, I've seen him. Yeah, he's the Rhodesian. Yeah.
The Rhodesian. Oh, he's from Rhodesia, Zimbabwe.
Nowadays, he was born in Rhodesia, but now it's Zimbabwe. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been to Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
When it was Zimbabwe.
Yeah. Pretty exciting. That's cool. Yeah. I have a question that's kind of random. Like, where do you get your water?
I have a water filter in my house, so it purifies the water. It's called Echo 2, and it takes out anything. It takes out fluoride and chlorine and arsenic and anything else that's in the water. And then I add to it a little bit of sea salt.
Like gold and some sea salt. Yeah.
Sea salt. I add a little something. It's got potassium and sodium and magnesium in it. I add a little bit of that, and then I add a little. This is going to be crazy, but I add a little boron. Boron's a mineral that's found in the oil. Boron's good for your nails.
Yeah.
You can't tell, but I'm doing hands.
Wow. Hold on, let me zoom in on that.
Wheels, and my nails are staying.
Those are solid. Yeah, those are great nails.
Like really boron.
And boron's the answer. All right, I'm gonna get some boron. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, you can buy it. It's a vitamin.
Here, I mean, eating buffalo tendons when I should be getting boron. I'm sorry.
Oh, you can eat buffalo tendons.
I will.
I feel like I said something to you, Andreas, years ago when I was living up Empire Grade and I had a spring on my property, and I was all like super stoked on it. And you said something
my favorite
that kind of like concerned me a little bit. And I think what were you referencing? You were referencing something that somebody said in a movie. You were talking about why even the springs could eventually be in danger like that. I don't remember what did you say there? What were you
I don't remember, but I remember
it will be blood or something, and I was like,
"Yeah, there's the drainage." Like, that's right. Watsonville. Okay, so because we've been to California, in Santa Cruz, California, we have the strawberry agriculture, and if you like live in Santa Cruz, like rich white people, and you go to Watsonville, and it's enslaved colonialism where they just basically kidnap Mexicans and then they pay them as little as possible. And I mean, like $3, $4. It's crazy how little they get paid to do this. But they have this huge community there.
By the bushel, so they don't get paid by the hour. Yeah.
Right. And so, telling me bananas, it's really insane. But then the Mexicans there are also forced to do the most dangerous pesticide work possible. So you'll see dudes, like if you ever watched E.T., where they're all in these space suits and hazmat suits, driving around on tractors and everything as they're just spraying Watsonville. Yeah. And then that drains into the soil, and the soil has the same aquifer in Santa Cruz. So it's draining into so we're putting chemicals into the spring water.
Right. And even, I know a lot of people in California buy plastic grass because it's going to be better for water. You don't want to waste water. Had so much water. What is the plastic grass made of? Plastic. And then what does it do? You're walking on it, so the plastic is going up. Kids are playing soccer on it, or grown-ups. My cousin plays on it. I tell her not to, but she's on a soccer team. So, and so she you're skidding on it. And then the plastic is going down through the soil into the water, into our groundwater.
And before you know it, your gut biome and your sex organs are replacing their, with the microplastics, right? Inside of you. Yeah.
Exactly. That's why I filter my water. That's why I only eat organic. I don't eat anything processed, just because I like being healthy. I'm sure I'm getting plastic, from breathing, but I just don't want to, ingest more of it. And so I want all my friends who have plastic grasses to try something else.
Right.
But they haven't figured it out yet.
LED lights and some rocks, maybe some cactus. But what do you think about like fluoride in general? Are you afraid of fluoride or not afraid? I think it's the wrong word. I love fluoride.
I have not had fluoride in decades. I just don't like it. I think it's a neurotoxin, but I know they had these big, huge fluoride trials recently in America, and they were checking on all the effects of fluoride. I didn't watch the trials, but I think that they were pretty bad effects from at least the articles I read about the trials. I'm just not into, I don't use anything. Like if I put moisturizer on, it's like olive oil, castor oil, jojoba oil, something like that. If I put anything on my hair, like to style it or whatever, the only thing I would put on is a little bit of castor oil or jojoba oil or olive oil or coconut oil. Like I don't want to put things on my skin. I do wear lipstick. I do wear mascara. I don't put on foundation, but I just don't want things on me that aren't real.
Yeah, things you wouldn't eat, you probably shouldn't rub on your body.
These are all organic. I would put organic on my body, So, yeah, I mean, it's like, we're in a world that is highly polluted, and we're in a world that is touting the pollution as if it's a good thing. And it's not,
Yeah.
That's do you think that they love the pollution? Like, do you think that there are people that think that, the world is benefited by Flint, Michigan having lead in the water? Maybe it keeps them magnetized to that town or something. Like, what do you think that they're trying to do?
I mean, people will say, they're doing, the planes are going across the sky, or Bill Gates is putting this stuff into the air to block the sun. And I'm like, what happens when you put a lid on a pot of boiling water? Right? It's the most stupid thing I can think of.
He just wants to get back to Venus, where he's from. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. He said something. What did he say? He said, I know some people are just planting trees for global warming, but that's so stupid, or something like that.
No, yeah, we've discussed that here before. That Johnny Appleseed was like a real person and an absolute legit revolutionary. Like there's something so.
He was a Swedenborgian minister, right? So
cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's
John Chapman would not kill anything, and like not only that, he wouldn't graft a tree. Like he wouldn't cut the branch to put onto another tree.
Yeah, that's why the Romans that started that.
We have phenomenological diversity of apples that has never been seen before because of that, right? Yeah.
Well, that and GMO. I mean, so there's a difference between grafting, which I know some people don't want to do, but grafting is kind of happens in nature.
Yeah.
On its own as well.
We're imitating nature when we do it ourselves, but
but the GMO is taking out this gene and this gene and this gene and mixing it with this gene and this gene, and then you've got something, purple broccoli or whatever,
Don't make it sound so cool. Yeah.
I know, but the purple broccoli that I eat is just made. It's not made from GMO.
Yeah, there is organic purple cauliflower. That's true.
Yes, and purple broccoli too.
But
go ahead.
No, you first.
Of light there isn't there. But
I remember watching these like on community television. They would show the meetings around deciding whether we would have fluoride in Watsonville water system. This is years ago. This is probably 2006 or 2007 or something. And they had all these dentists going on to talk about why this was a good idea. And then beyond that, it was like just regular locals going up to the microphone, and they would get shut down if they were speaking too passionately because they're really charged on it, because they were like, no, this feels to me to be unsafe for organs, blah blah, and then they'd cut them off, and then they give the dentist extra time to try and plead the case. And I was like, they're talking about drinking water. We are not debating on toothpaste right now. Like, that is another debate that can happen, but you're supposed to spit that out, right? And I was just amazed that it was like, I watched it. It was like few hours long and it seemed like there was no acknowledgement of the distinction between what you put in your mouth and spit out and what you swallow into your body. Like, I mean, I don't know, man. We're talking recently about Dr. Strangelove, which I'm a huge Kubrick fan, obviously. But you know, that was a point in that film, was that that it was a joke, but when it was originally written, it wasn't really a joke. Like, that movie became a comedy when they started filming it. So there's elements that are in there that were actually part of the original like concept of a guy who's really concerned about the quote unquote communist plot of putting the fluoride in the water. You go back, you find one of the first places to put fluoride in the water, I guess, was supposedly
Nazi Germany.
Auschwitz.
Yeah, Nazi Germany.
Auschwitz, they put it in the water, and they say to make people more docile. So I'm like, you know, I don't mean to be a conspiracy theorist over here, but that seems pretty sketchy. Just
Sketchy's a good word. You know, to me, I just want as few chemicals as I can have, whether it's fluoride or whether it's silver or whether it's arsenic or whether it's chlorine. Why? Like, I have a jacuzzi here that I don't use because I mean, if I could, maybe my neighbor has one that she uses UV light, so I might do that.
You could switch to bromine and ozone. Ozone's really cool. No? All right.
Yeah, ozone is okay, but bromine is basically, it's also toxic.
Yeah.
Not as toxic as chlorine, but so like, I'm just like really clear. I like to be clean, you know, I like to have purity in my body. So I just do that. You know, I don't think anybody else has to do this, but it does feel good. I mean, I wake up feeling good. I don't have any pain in my body. But I also love, you know, everything, you know, so
it seems interesting because I know some people that are like very into transhumanism, and I'm not going to use any names just because they don't seem to look as well from their transhumanist chemical transformation as someone being organic, as yourself looking organic, right? Like, it seems like the organic solution is still more powerful and better than any technology that we've introduced.
Yeah, what is transhumanism to you? Because tell me.
I'm a fan of transhumanism in the sense that it is to be like as human as possible. I think people confuse the term with post-humanism, and I'm not into post-humanism. Post-humanism where you become non-human. And I think a lot of people are afraid of transhumanism leading into a non-human. But I think of if somebody like our follower Robert, who is missing a leg, you know, if we give him a fake leg or a synthetic leg, like, that is fulfilling it is fulfilling the extent of what is capable for a human to experience. Right?
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm not really interested in any of that. And, you know, I mean, I feel like I'm into, you know, people talk about biohacking and they're saying, oh, do this and do this and do this. And it's all this fake stuff. And I'm just like, I'll just biohack with my mind and with my diet and with exercise. I exercise a lot. I like to exercise. Yeah.
It seems like that's more effective, like, than anything I'm seeing. Like, I'm seeing people on YouTube and Instagram trying to tell us that they should inject blood platelets from teenagers, and I don't think they're looking as good.
I remember when I was in massage school, they'd teach us to treat a phantom limb as though that the limb were there. Like, you just continue on, like it's just there. Although if you have a phantom limb and you entertain that, it still is not going to allow you to walk on it. So I can appreciate, and maybe you don't want just like a stick there, like a pirate, you know, or whatever, you know, maybe you actually want something that physically works for you, you know, I don't know.
Yeah. And
if I was without a leg, I'd probably be into that too, you know?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. There's a guy or somebody, there's people who are making, you know, the 3D printers, they were making limbs with 3D printers. So I can see how there's a benefit to it if you have that going on. You know, of course you want some help. And of course there's something that could, you know, help people. I say, yeah, go for it. I just feel like at the point where I'm at right now, I would rather just do everything.
You've already got all your legs.
I've got my legs and I don't want to inject anything into myself to make myself more youthful, I'd rather just do it with my mind. I know the power of my mind because I've seen my breast grow from C to D. I've seen my life change when I change my understanding. I see people change the way they relate to me when I change how I relate to them. It's just like mind blowing how much power we have. Most people don't recognize it. And, it's interesting because what I'll do is I'll watch somebody who's a doctor who's talking about, biohacking or something like that. And then I think, okay, how can I do that with my mind? People go and they say, oh, I smoke pot so I can relax, right? That's what a lot of people say. Our bodies have endocannabinoid receptors. That means that our bodies make cannabinoid naturally, if I'm saying it right. It might not be.
Cannabinoid?
Cannabinoid. Okay.
Cannabinoid.
Yeah, cannabinoid. So if our body has these receptors and our body makes
cannabinoids.
Thank you. Then
it sounds like Canada, kind of. I wish it was like producing little Canada maple syrup inside of our bloodstream.
But if your body makes it endogenously, and then you're smoking it or however you're eating it, whatever you're doing to get it ingested in you, you're telling your body not to make this chemical.
Yeah.
And then your body says, "Oh, okay, I won't do that." And then that's part of the reason people have a bad thing when they stop doing it. They don't feel good because their body has stopped making it naturally. And you can make endogenous DMT. I make endogenous DMT. That's the thing that people take, the ayahuasca. You can make that just by having a certain consciousness and a certain way of breathing and touching certain parts.
You're gonna get raided by the DEA and be like, "It's all in my head. Calm down." Yeah.
So there's DMT in everything. Every animal, every plant has natural DMT, and so do humans. And so you have the ability to make it. I mean, and I don't eat sugar. Sugar makes wrinkles.
Yeah. I don't need sugar either. Not for that reason. I just don't really like it, but it's good to know. I hope that works out for me.
Yeah, it doesn't sugar dulls your sexual desire.
Really?
Sexual sensation. Like if you eat sugar, it dulls your nerves. So your nerves don't have as much capacity for pleasure.
Wow.
I know. Wrinkles, nerves, causes dementia, causes diabetes, causes cancer. Well, feeds cancer, I should say.
Do you think that there's a connection to your reward center in your brain, which might be relatable to earlier discussing our difficulty in being present with being uncomfortable? It seems to be the number one addiction, really. Sugar. And it's everything. And even with tobacco, there's the chemical equivalent, and it's not that you're in your lungs. It's not that you're necessarily just, this is a sugar addiction. I found out is something that sugar chemical equivalent produces in your body is another chemical that then ties into your reward center, because the nicotine is out of your system in 3 days for the average person. So, and beyond oral fixation or whatever, this tendency, there's something else there. I've made it a point to try and meditate on what is happening, because I've been a smoker on and off for years, and I was raised in smoke. My dad smoked cigars. My whole house was filled with smoke when I was growing up, and I can find that point where when I've stopped smoking, and then it's the nicotine is no longer the issue, and then I'm well, beyond just the fidgety kind of oral, I'm what is that? And I'm I don't think that it is sugar necessarily. It's that the sucrose or whatever is transmuting into another. I forget what it is exactly, but there's something to this. You can look it up. But, yeah.
There's something that I would say about this, because most people here's a toxic substance, whether it's sugar, cigarettes, alcohol, pot, whatever. Pot has some good, CBD, I think, might have some good things. It never did anything to me, but I think that's because I make so much endogenous.
Yeah.
And so you have this thing, and then you have a childhood experience usually. Excuse me. You're at a party, so you get that toxic thing. You're at you have a boo-boo, so you get that toxic thing. So you never learn how to deal with your emotions. When you learn how to deal with your emotions and understand that your emotions are just indicators, just like on your car, you're going at this mile an hour, you're turning left, you've got that indicator, you're low on gas. That's all it is. It's not like an emotion where you have to go, oh my God, I feel uncomfortable. I have to do this and I have to do this. I got to get out of this that discomfort. That's how I used to be. And it's a terrible place to be because so you have to separate the substance from the emotion and learn how to cultivate the emotions that you like and to accept the emotions and to appreciate and love the emotions that you don't like.
Yeah. I aspire to not make decisions in my life, even on a mundane level, coming out of fear.
Yeah.
Like that's why like a lot of the arguments that I hear from people and even like politically, it's like, oh, you don't want to do this because we're afraid of this happening. We don't want to do this because we're afraid of this happening. I'm like, I want to like have my actions coming out of places of like hope and like possibility and like, openness to something like, and at the same time, it's understandable because it's so easy to be jaded when people just do like, it's just being scammed all the time. So it's like, I have to be very perceptive. I have to determine, is somebody a genuine variable? And just like, are things in my life like authentic variables? Or are they just like someone trying to manipulate me or me trying to manipulate myself, which kind of amounts to the same, honestly. But yeah, it's like, that was the thing, like just to go there again. I mean, I'm like with Bernie, it was like, he was, according to himself, a sheepdog candidate. And I had never heard of a political sheepdog before he said it in late 2015. And he referred to himself as such. And I had to look it up. And he said, a sheepdog, it's
sort of like an Austrian shepherd,
It's what a sheepdog does. And it's like this idea that they get people in a political party, all enthusiastic and all geared up with the ultimate intention to drop out so that they're more likely to embrace the lesser candidate, as because they'll embrace a lesser of the evils because they're this is now what they got, so they'll settle for that they may not have settled for that unless if they were geared up to begin with for this other guy. So it's like there's that,
and that's how they elected Trump. Yeah.
Well, Trump, according to a WikiLeaks, I think it's the smoking gun of all of what came from Assange's WikiLeaks, was a group email sent from Podesta to the DNC outlining their strategy for Hillary's initial campaign. And the strategy was that they referred to Trump and Ted Cruz, and there's another person in there too, there's three, and they said these are our potential Pied Piper candidates. So they say, we will run this, we will substantiate this person, we'll have the media assist us in substantiating the most extreme people that they could find, because they felt it was kind of a way to make their own candidate look as good as possible. So they're like, if we have the most extreme person, then it'll be easier for us to win, which was a gamble. My problem with that is that, were we all in on that? Like we didn't know that we were participating in a gamble of these people. And this is admitted from Debbie Wasserman Schultz under oath. She explained that the DNC is a brand, and if somebody doesn't fit their brand, even if they're the ones running them, they have every right to sabotage their campaign. And so it was hard for me to be enthusiastic about Bernie in like a real passionate way, because I had heard him call himself a sheepdog. And when I looked it up, I was like, are you freaking kidding me? You don't even, this is, and I think what it was that he wanted his healthcare bill passed. And that was like a secret deal. It was like, okay, well, if you play along with this, we'll pass your health care bill. But in the end, Pelosi turned it down. She had Medicare for all put in front of them, and the squad went along with what Pelosi suggested. And so it's just, this is why we can't have nice things. It's like, because there's just so much
and there's
manipulation that people aren't even privy to.
It's also
and they're
like
arguing amongst each other.
It's also interesting. Sorry, but just thinking like Robert Kennedy says, okay, so like a campaign usually is on really like relatable issues, like health, environment, policy, right? And so what they've done is they've taken those ideas, like health itself has become a woo concept, right? If you're talking about health, it used to be, I care about health of families and things like that. Now it's like you're a hippie, or you're establishment, or you're a conspiracy theorist because you're talking about health, right? The same
Right.
thing with the environment.
Well,
If
I
you talk,
haven't that.
I mean, well, we know you have, because if we're, for instance, if we talk about like the vaccine, right? Like immediately that will trigger this YouTube video that there may be talking about a conspiracy related to health, which is crazy because that's not the initial intention of when we talk about it, right? But that is how everything. So now it's really hard for someone like if Bobby wants to talk on the internet, everything that he's talking about is tagged to conspiracy theories, even though it's just about health or environment or policy. Right?
Yeah, exactly. For example, one of the things that he said was, atrazine in water can cause male frogs to turn to female. Yeah, and we ought to research that.
Alex Jones was like, "Yes, I told them all. I told them." Yeah.
He said we ought to research this. So I researched it, and in Berkeley, Cal Berkeley, they studied. They took 40 frogs, I think, and they put them in a pool of water with atrazine. Atrazine is a very toxic pesticide. It's estrogenic, meaning it is a pesticide that cause you to make more estrogen.
Yeah, we saw Jurassic Park. Yeah.
Yeah.
I read it.
Yeah. So in that thing, all these male frogs turned to females, and then the females, some of the male frogs even grew ovaries. Like and so what Bobby was saying, he wasn't saying that atrazine makes people gay or transgender. Mm-hmm. What he was saying is, let's see what this is doing to humans.
Yeah.
That's what he was saying.
If it does this to frogs, let's look at it. Let's research it.
Yes, right. And then to me, that's like a basic understanding. Like, of course, if it's doing that to frogs, that's part of the reason we knew that there was a problem in Michigan, because the frogs had 2 legs or three legs instead of 4, and they had 1 eye, or they had 3 eyes, or they were deformed. The frogs in Michigan were deformed 30 years ago, and they should have started looking at those frogs to see what they were doing to Flint and other places around there. And it was all from the toxins. Frogs don't do that naturally. It's because they're toxicated. I have to tell you one thing. I don't know if we have time. Do we have time to tell you?
We have 15 minutes if you have it.
Okay. Yeah. So in California, in LA, there were all these companies, because we thought DDT was so good. People were slathering it on their kids, and DDT is an estrogen.
Dad, yeah. God.
Yeah, sorry. It's estrogenic. It's an estrogenic pesticide that people were putting. A baby doesn't have any flies anymore. Like, how many babies have flies around them? I have not seen that ever.
My dad, when he was a kid, like in Mountain View, and they did farming, like he told me every day they'd go and shower in DDT as soon as they were done working. Every day. Yeah, it's crazy.
Is he still alive?
He has dementia. Yeah, it's like gotten issues. But yeah, definitely not a good lifestyle is DDT.
Right. So then they realized, Rachel Carson's book, Silent Spring, talked about DDT. So they realized DDT was bad, and she was smeared, but her book was brilliant. She was smeared as a conspiracy theorist in the 60s. Wow. And as, bad science and blah, blah, blah. But she was talking about nature and doing it in a healthy way. So all these companies that made DDT had to get rid of their DDT. So they threw it into the ocean in these big barrels. But the barrels were floating, so they had to shoot the barrels. So now the DDT is going all over the Santa Monica Bay and everywhere else.
That explains a lot, actually. Venice Beach, right?
Maybe you're right. So then the fish are eating the DDT. They're swimming in the DDT. They're eating the DDT.
Oh, wow.
The eagles, California eagle is a bird of California. The California eagles were eating the fish. So then when the California eagles were going to have a baby, they would sit on their baby, and it was estrogenic. The baby didn't have enough
embryo soap,
masculine hormones in the egg. So when she would sit on it, she'd kill it.
Yeah.
So my friend Reggie, I did a Stories We Love. He was, I think, my second Stories We Love or third one. He did baby eagle rescue. There's scientists there on Catalina Island where all the birds give birth and live. Most of the eagles in California, or at least in this area of California, live there. And so he has a friend that has a helicopter, and they'd get a call, eagle just had a baby. And so they'd have to rush because they don't want the eagle to sit on the baby. So they rush with the helicopter across the bay. It's only 28 miles away. So it's like 15-minute ride once they get the message and get there. And then they pick up the scientist and they hang him dope a rope, across the canyon. And so he's just hanging there, and he's got a special little case with fake eggs inside.
Mm-hmm.
The mama bird flies away because of the helicopter, and they lower him into the helicopter. He takes the fake eggs out, and he puts the real eggs in this padding and closes it up. And then he puts the fake eggs where the other eggs were. And then they leave, and they have cameras on each nest. And the nests are like 6 feet long.
Huge.
And so then they take the baby and put it in an incubator until it hatches. And then once it hatches, they feed it with an eagle puppet.
Yeah.
And then they what are you doing? Is that an egg?
Yeah, this is how you can do it. You can if you have if you have a problem where the eggshell's too thin and like you want to try to save the bird, you can actually patch it with some saran wrap, and then you can continually feed it nutrients. And so this is something that's really important for California condors as well right now. But,
wow, that's really cool. I wonder if that's kind of how they do it in Catalina
Channel Islands.
Yeah, and once the baby's born and it's kind of oriented for a day or two, then they call my friend again, and they hang the scientist on the dopa rope, and then he goes back with his little box and he empties the real eggs there, or the real chicks there, and takes the fake eggs back. Mom has left because of the noise of the helicopter, and then they hover with the helicopter like 20 feet away, or maybe 50 feet with binoculars, and they make sure that the mom will accept the baby, because some moms will think, oh, this baby is not mine, but most of these moms have accepted them. So they grew the eagle population by a lot because of this practice. And the reason I brought it up is because atrazine is a estrogenic, DDT is estrogenic, and you can see how the DDT affected the eagle's eggs. And you can see how the atrazine affected another species, the frogs. So why wouldn't we want to investigate that? I think that to me, that is common sense. If you see, and they had all these commercials about DDT, you do DDT. It was so good, asbestos, make it on your windows, put it on your Christmas tree. It looks like this. And it's mesothelioma. I have a friend who grew up where they put asbestos in his house, and every time we would go to comedy, he's like a lot older. When we'd go to comedy, the people say, "Oh, you look like your person was mesothelioma," or something like that, which is the I forget the name, but they would make a joke, and he was like, "Yeah, I grew up with asbestos."
Oh my God,
that's what asbestos causes, So you should use Johnson's baby powder, and now that's proven to be toxic, and so there's so much stuff that keeps getting shown is toxic, and to me, I feel like, why don't I just cut all of that out and just use natural stuff on my face, natural stuff on my hair, natural stuff in my body, and to me, it's common sense. I like that Bobby goes to look at what is happening to frogs, or what is happening to baby eagle eggs, or any other creatures.
All of our InfoWars fans will agree with you there. We got to look into what's turning those frogs, buddy. Come on.
What's so funny is that when I was so the way I first found out about Robert Kennedy Jr., I heard about him a little bit here and there, but years ago, I would get in these like hardcore debates with my cousin Charlie. And people thought that my cousin was me on Facebook because he's Charlie Plate.
I still do. I'm not convinced.
They thought it was like my sock puppet account, and he's just like super like actual anti-vax. He's not just vaccinated. He's just, that's what he is. And that's fine. That's, he is who he is. But we would get in these huge debates years ago over vaccine stuff. I'm talking like ways before COVID. And then he showed me a video of RFK, and then I watched another one and another one. But my initial reaction, I was like, oh, he sounds to me like Alex Jones, because I heard that raspy voice.
You might not get what we're saying. Trust us, it's a compliment. Just keep going.
Oh, yeah. And so it was like, but the thing was, I just, what I ended up doing, it didn't take me long, was I just was like, don't focus on what he sounds like, listen to what it is that he's actually saying, and cross-reference it. Because I always cross-reference everything, you know. And I was like talking to my cousin, he's like, I don't think any vaccine has done any good, you know. And like we could just be done away with those and we'd be better off. And I was like, oh, I'd get in these big old arguments with him, you know. And I'm in my naivety, there's certain things I just didn't know. And RFK Jr. was the first person that was explaining it in a way that I could actually look at what he was pointing to, see the data, see the evidence, and adjust accordingly. And so I had like kind of like a whole cognitive dissonance breakdown on that particular subject. And then he had his book that he edited on that additive that was put in vaccines, like I forget what it's called.
Thimerosal.
Yeah, thank you. And like, and I'm just like, wow, this guy is freaking amazing. So it's like when, you know, it was announced that he was actually running, I'm like, I can't not be excited about that, because this is the guy that kind of, in a way, kind of humiliated me, and in a good way, because I was kind of humiliated because I thought I had a really strong position there because of everything that I had been told and everything I had assumed. And I'm like, I like it when that happens in my life. Like, I don't like it initially ever, because it's like, wait, I thought something and it turns out I'm full of shit. But yeah, I was a bit full of shit, and that's okay, you know. But yeah, so I thought he was like, oh, is he an Alex Jones conspiracy theorist? No, he's kind of his own thing there, you know. He's kind of unique. Like, he's actually a critical thinker who's processing things out and sharing his process with you. If you know, when so even if there's a place right now where there's very few at this point, but like even Israel Palestine, you know, I studied with a rabbi who's very critical of Israel. I transcribed Zohar for 10 years with him. I feel very strongly about that issue, and there's certain things that he'll say sometimes that feel like these kind of like stereotypical talking points that I don't resonate with. But then in the mix, he'll say something that's just like, oh yeah, the settlements on the West Bank, totally illegal. But you know, and then he'll say these things. Netanyahu and Hamas are in a perverse relationship. Like, and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm not hearing anyone else say these things. So even though there's these points here where I'm a little like, wait, what? And it's kind of cringe, I'm still at the same time like, he's still trying to figure things out. And you know what? A Palestinian aimed a gun at his father, didn't hit him, hit all these other people in the process. He had you know, close range gunshots from behind with the bullets that belong to the gun that belong to the Secret Service. So, you know, that's just fact. So, but it's like, you know, that was a Palestinian man. He's been trying to get Sirhan out of prison for years, like with other family members too, trying to do the same thing. It's like, this is an objective feeling on it. He's not relating to things in this tribalistic lens. Like, there's all the evidence that he's not doing that. And I'm like, that's refreshing. I'm so used to everybody being just, you're on this side of the aisle or you're on that side and there's nothing in between. And I'm just like, how are we not all over that? Like, how is there anybody that's still like attached to that? It just feels like it's just so worn out. Like,
yeah, exactly. And you know what's so funny is something that Bobby has said that I really like is that he puts people before politics. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I've watched him, you know, work with, I think it's called Hook and Rod, you know, which are usually Republicans, and then with pre-Indians, and then with the NAACP, and then honoring the right of Nazis to have freedom of speech.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and then working for Republicans, and then working for Democrats, and then working for, you know, migrant workers. Like, he's just gone everywhere to help. He wants to help. And so his thing that he says is politics before people. I mean, people before politics, sorry. People before politics, country before party. And I think that most other people, they put their party first and they put the politics before people.
Yeah. Yeah. I think deep down, people, they want something else, but the way that the information war is happening, talk about info wars, like, it's just, a lot of people just don't have access to it. Like, they're smart people. They haven't been shown certain realities. And, you know, it goes beyond mainstream media now, because even if you're trying, like, a lot of the alternative media has itself kind of become mainstream. Like we're a long way from like the Bill Cooper days where, where people, even he had his problems, but still, I mean, it was alternative media, and now it's like you can almost buy anything, you can buy most people off that have a big platform, unfortunately,
Yeah, and what has happened also is that whether it's the mainstream news that's doing this, because they don't want Bobby because he'll take pharma, which usually pays about 75% of their bill every night.
There you
Brought
go.
to you by Pfizer. He's going to take pharma off of TV, which only America and New Zealand have it still. I think that's a good idea. I liked when they took hard alcohol off of TV. I thought that was really smart. And cigarettes off of TV. But so he's going to do that. But one of the things that they do, and I'm not sure who does it, I don't know if it's them or they just don't do the research to find actual things, but they take videos to make him look crazy. So a lot of times people will see a video and the video will show it's cut, but you can't tell it's cut. And the video will show him saying something terrible. Like they have one video out there where he says, climate deniers, they should be in jail or something like that. That's not what he said.
Well, I was saying the Koch brothers specifically, you just need that 4 minutes before that clip and it's very clear who he's talking about.
Right. And
I'm talking about regular people. Yeah.
The Koch brothers, what they had done is they had polluted a community and then left it so that people were getting sick and had to pay the bill to clean it up and had to pay the hospital bills. That should be illegal. A company should clean up their mess, just like, your kids.
Yeah, it's true. And it's funny too, because like at the time, like when people talk about climate change, wasn't even talking about global warming, like, climates shift and the degree to which we influence that is questionable. So I can, I'm happy to acknowledge that, but I do think that we have some part in that, but at the same time, what the fuck? Like we always have changing climate, like over time. Like there's evidence for it going back eons. So I don't really,
Sure.
But
the thing we do have that humans are a big contribution to is pollution, degradation of forests, degradation of grasslands. There's a butterfly problem because we kill milkweed. Yeah, I don't kill it. I'm a milkweed butterfly sanctuary now. but milkweed would grow everywhere in the Midwest, and butterflies go from, let's say they're born at my house, they fly down. I'm not sure which way they go first, but they fly down to Mexico and then they fly to Canada and then they come back to my house and they birth again at my house. They have a whole swath of Central America, the Midwest, where there's no more milkweed. Right. So these butterflies, they are big travelers. They need a lot of food. And if you want to be a milkweed way station, then a butterfly way station, then you can get a whole bunch of different kinds of milkweed and just allow it to grow all over your property, and it will proliferate. Once you get 9, you become a butterfly way station. Milkweed. It's amazing. And yeah, it's so cool. And the milkweed seeds have each seed is encased in this fine filament. I don't know what it's made of, but it floats everywhere. And so milkweed proliferates everywhere. And it's what the butterflies and the hummingbirds like it too.
Oh man, the hummingbirds. I was sitting with my housemate Bill yesterday on a sunny day, and we got all these plants out here that my old housemate planted that are like, some of them, there's only like 2 of them in Northern America. Like he has like all these South American plants and things from Peru and shit. But it's like there's one of those very exotic kind of flower trees. It's getting super tall, but there must have been like 6 hummingbirds just going crazy in there, and we're hanging out, we're having a conversation, a hummingbird comes right up.
That's because hummingbirds travel in gangs, man. They're gangs of hummingbirds.
Man,
can't trust them.
Yeah, I get a lot of hummingbirds too because I have red and purple flowers and lots of bees. And
I know we've hit the 2-hour mark. I got one question. I'm not sure how valuable this is to anybody, but I feel like it would be disservice to the audience who love the X-Files not to ask you, do you have any X-File-y feelings about reality? Like, what do you think about aliens, clockwork elves, reptilians? How much is the evil exterior,
Yeah. I have understanding about people who have died that have never died. Meaning their bodies die, but their energy does not. In fact, one of them would turn on this light over here on her birthday or on the anniversary of her death. always for me to reach out to her family because there was something going on with her family that was where I could support. You know, I've had it where like one time, oh, this was so funny. I was just getting divorced and I'm pretty psychic. So my husband thought I was a what he called a fucking nut because I was kind of psychic. And so one day I'm driving and I hear this noise in the back of my car and I think it's a dog. And so I pull over to see if there's a dog in the back of my car, but there's no dog. So I get back in the car and I feel the energy of the dog that my husband and I had together who had died, you know, like a year before, Reuben. And so Reuben is like, you got to call your husband. You got to call your husband. You got to call your husband. I was like, no. He thinks I'm a nut. I'm not going to call him. Why do you want me to call him? And he's like, you got to tell him he's going to get a dog and it's going to be me. And I'm like, no, he thinks I'm a nut. I'm not going to do that. He already thinks I'm crazy. And so this is before I was healed. And so Reuben's with me all night, you know, just like, you got to call him. You got to call him. And then the next morning, I'm trying to go work out at the beach with my friends. And Reuben comes up, and this is just the energy of the dog, right? It's not. So he's just right there, and he says, "You gotta call him. You gotta call him. You gotta call him." And I'm like, "Oh," I said, "I want to go to the beach. You gotta call him before you go. You gotta call him." So I go, "Okay." So I dial the phone, and he picks up, and I say, "Hi, how are you?" And he says, "Oh, I'm just in the car with his daughter." And I said, "Oh, great." I said, "I think I got a message from Reuben." And there's this long pause, and he goes, "What did he say?"
He doesn't want to believe it, but it's his dog, you know? He wants
He goes, I said, Reuben said you're going to get a dog and it's going to be him. And there's a really long pause. And he said, my daughter and I are in the car to go to Santa Barbara to pick up a dog. Like, that's kind of the stuff that happens, right? I've had hundreds of those. Because I don't think anybody dies. It's the first law of thermodynamics. Energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It can only be transmuted. So, so I get those things. I don't know. People talk about reptilians. I don't know. I like geckos. They can do a tail. I don't really think about those things because it's too crazy to me. So I just like to stay sane. I don't have a TV. I haven't had a TV since I was 14, except for when I've had it a couple times. But like I only would watch like 1 or 2 shows over 3 years. So I never bought another one. So it's like, I just don't buy into that. I am friends with Chris Carter, who was friends with the girl who died. And my aunt was his math teacher. She said, this is my aunt. I'll just tell you, this is so funny. So she says, she smoked. I heard you just did the X-Files. Isn't that with that boy, Chris Carter? Yeah, that's him. She goes, he was my student.
Oh my God.
I said, really? And she says, yeah, he was trouble. Trouble. Tell him Mrs. Lambro says hi.
Wow.
She's Greek. My mom is Greek. So I wrote a thank you letter to Chris, and then I ran into him at a restaurant I was with my girlfriend and he was with his friends, and so we connected. And then I connected at that girl's house, the girl who died, and turned the light on. And so because her husband worked with him, and so it was just really funny. So yeah, he loved my aunt. He said, but she sent him to the principal's office every day because he daydreamed.
So, but not really worried about clockwork elves or like the idea of there being not necessarily worry, but like, do you think in terms of synchro mysticism, right? We're doing a lot, but do you think that there's like angels or anything metaphysical that's not? Yeah. What do you think about all that?
Oh, I just think there's energies that are helping us all the time.
Yeah.
I know people say, oh, what about Area 51? What about aliens? I'm sure that there's somebody somewhere in the universe, but I'm just going to intend that they love me. Because I love them. So I don't care. If they come, I can't wait to meet them. But I'm not worried about it. If there's some other energy, I don't think there's any negative energy, except for the energy that when people disconnect themselves from the spirit, it is the most painful feeling that they can ever have. So when you're hating someone, when you're uncomfortable, it's all because you've disconnected yourself from your spirit. You can't really disconnect fully, but it's the most painful thing. So I have compassion for people. Mm-hmm. And if there's somebody that's doing something like, but I don't think, I mean, I've had experiences where I've, not that, I'm trying to see if I find it. Maybe I can't find it. No, I can't find it. I've bent spoons. I've levitated. I know that there's energies out there. I've been psychic. I've had a lot of those things. So I know that there is that energy, but I'm not afraid of it. I just know it too much. So there might be that kind of stuff, but I just figure if I love it, it's going to love me.
That's the right answer. There's a word called pronoia, which is the positive counterpart of paranoia. Is the delusion? I don't know if it's delusion, but it's the idea.
I am paranoiac.
That others think that what the others think well of one. Actions and the products of one's efforts are thought to be well received and praised by others. Mere acquaintances are thought to be close friends. Politeness and exchange of pleasantries are taken as expressions of deep attachment and the promise of future support. Paranoia seems rooted in the social complexity and cultural ambiguity of our lives. I like it a lot. I think if we're going to choose between seeing things as being helpful to us or harmful to us, you might as well see the good in everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I wrote a thing about Jenna McCarthy. She's a.
There is no spoon. That's why you couldn't find the spoon, because there is no spoon. A little Matrix moment.
I like it. Jenna found it.
Oh my gosh! What?
It's got 3 loops, because I tried it one night in a group. Then I tried it the next day. So there's another loop. And then I tried it one more time the next day. It was another group. But Jenna McCarthy wrote a book it's called Yankee Doodle Soup, and it's just coming out. And she asked if I would write a chapter, and it was about conspiracy theorists and conspiracy theories. So I wrote my thing was the best conspiracy ever. And it was how the universe is conspiring to give you everything you want. She thought it was really funny. So anyway.
I'm convinced that that's true. Well, I want to make sure everyone takes the time. Thank you for being here. I want to make sure everyone goes to your Twitter and then also checks out Chronic Book Pleasure. This is the Karen Lorre Coaching.com.
Chronic Pleasure Book, not Chronic Book Pleasure.
That's a whole other book there. But Chronic Pleasure Book. No, I mean, it's pretty good. And then, yeah, I would definitely say, like, you should check out her work. And, you know, she was in a cool episode of Cheers I saw, like, last year, ironically. And, yeah. Karen's cool. We really like you, Karen. You should come back anytime you feel like it. Thank you.
You guys are so sweet. Thank you.
I'd like to just add one thing is that, you know, the reason why I was initially inspired to reach out to you, that I felt like you'd be a good fit on our podcast, was I mean, I've been following you on Twitter for a while, and I love the way that you navigate what you do and politically. But you had a video that was like, it's a video on RFK, but it's like it was done in the style of like a meditation video, and the way that you were speaking about it in this very like calm, very present kind of way. And it's just like, I just really, I enjoyed that. And then when I asked you if you would come on the show, I really appreciated, you know, I said it's a show on synchronicity. That is our general theme that we try to stick to. And, you know, you said my whole life is synchronicity. And so like, even like you just, like Andreas, you just asked her about, can you relate to anything with the X-Files? Your story with the dog was a synchronicity.
Yeah,
like you have, you know, the like they're on their way to do the thing. Like, it's just, yeah, I really like that. So it's great having you.
The whole world is synchronizing you. If you pay attention to it, you'll see it. And it might be synchronizing you with things you don't like. You know, when people say, oh, I had a bad day and this happened and this happened, and that's a lot of bad synchronicity. You can also have a really great everything, you know, where this happened and this happened and this happened, you know, and it's really fun. So, yeah. So synchronicity is happening all day long. If you make a note of it, you know, if you track it, like put a note in your phone or put a note on a notebook, you know, I had a synchronicity. I thought of this and they called me, or I had a synchronicity. I was thinking of this song and it played on the radio, or I had a synchronicity. I turned around the corner and there was my friend, right? You know, if you start to notice all the synchronicities, you will increase them. And if you appreciate them, you'll increase them even more.
Totally. And then it makes you wonder, were they there all along and you just weren't picking up on it? The more that you become aware of it, the more you catch it. I love that. Yep. Yeah.
That's exactly right. And the more that you're consistent in focusing on what you want versus what you don't want, then you will also attract more. Totally. You'll attract more of the good ones is what I mean. You're always attracting a lot of them, but it's the thing, you know, oh, I woke up on the wrong side of the bed. You know, it's not the wrong side of the bed. It was a moment that you didn't feel good. And if you knew how to shift yourself, if you read my first book, if you know how to shift yourself, you'll make your rest of your day great. So you don't have to keep attracting it all day long.
Totally.
I feel like this, if there is something out there, it speaks through synchronicities. That seems to be the thing to pay attention to.
Yeah, synchronicity is a long name for God, is what people say, or God's way of being anonymous.
I like that. Well, thank you for being here, Karen. I hope that we can talk again soon. You're leaving me thinking a lot of thoughts, so we'll have to come even deeper onto synchronicity. I'm going to read your book. I think I'll start with that. Thank you.
Oh, thank you both so much. Andreas, it's wonderful to meet you, and I love your wisdom, and I love your wisdom, David. It's just really fun. You guys are both on a good path. It's beautiful.
Thank you. I like being on this path with you. I love your wisdom too. I love this.
Thank you. All right, have a great rest of your day. Ciao.
See you guys all.
This next story has been suppressed by mainstream media. Let's go to Andreas for more.
Everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians.